Okay. People will not stop talking about this phone, so let's review it. Okay, firstly, it's cold, which is why I'm wearing this. Maybe this should be a new look. What do you think? Perhaps I should wear these for every video. Anyway, you're not here for that. You're here for this, which is the Vivo X200 Pro. This is my first ever experience of a Vivo phone. However, I've heard a lot about it, mainly on the press circuit. So when I go to these press events and stuff, a lot of the people who write for tech magazines, that's very 1990s. The tech publications and other YouTubers have been talking this thing up. They've had it a little bit earlier than me, and well, they don't shut up about it, basically. They say this is one of the best smartphones they've used, and possibly the best camera system they've ever used on a... I need to take this off. I look ridiculous. Yeah, one of the best smartphone cameras they've ever used. I need to test that out, which is exactly what I'm doing in this video. Firstly though, just a very quick plug, if you like, for my new newsletter. I've been publishing a newsletter, behind the scenes newsletter, since 2020, I think, but we've recently revamped it, so it's just a bit more valuable for anyone who signs up. It's completely free, and you get, like I say, a behind the scenes newsletter from me every week. You can unsubscribe if you want, it's no problem at all, but give it a go, see what you think. The link is down below. We give lots of stuff in terms of advice on, the best tech news to read that week, and, product recommendations, all the normal stuff. But the thing that I think you'll be most interested in is what goes on behind the scenes here. It's worth a watch. Anyway, let's get into the Vivo X200 Pro. Specs and pricing. Now, I don't have the exact global pricing to hand at the moment, or the availability. So this is a phone that's been out in China for a little while now, but now technically this is the global version. You can buy it globally. So have a look in your region and see what you can find. What I'll say on the pricing is that it is a flagship phone. There's an X200, which we will review on the website, so keep an eye out for that. But this X200 Pro is a flagship device, so expect to pay flagship money for it. So we have the MediaTek Dimensity 9400 chip inside, which is MediaTek's latest flagship chip. It has 16 gig of RAM and 512 gig of storage. It's got IP68 and IP69 water and dust resistance. We know what IP68 is. IP69 is basically, it's kind of protection against high pressure jets of water at a certain temperature. So if you happen to work in that kind of environment, or you regularly come into contact with high pressure jets of water, you're okay with this. The battery is capable of 90 watt flash charge and 30 watt wireless charging. The display is 6.78 inches. It's got 4,500 nits of peak brightness, and yes, a 120 Hz variable refresh rate, because of course it has. The design, let's get straight into the design of this phone. It is absolutely chunky in a very good way, in my opinion. That's mainly, in fact, it's only because of this massive camera module, which does have one downside, which is that it makes it a little bit top heavy. I don't mind that. I can get used to that. You can obviously put a case on there and even out the feel of the back a little bit, but this is making a massive statement. I'll get onto the camera system in a bit, obviously, but apart from the weight of it, actually, it's only a little bit heavier. I think 1 gram heavier than an iPhone 16 Pro Max. So it's not massively heavier than, even titanium flagships, but it's just, well, look at it. There aren't too many buttons. There's just a volume rocker and a power button, which these days is actually quite, well, it's comforting. It's nice that we don't have a camera control and all that sort of stuff. So design, it's understated, absolutely. There are some different colors, so you can choose from, where are the colors? I made a note. No, I didn't. Okay, we'll just put the colors down here, but this is the nice kind of silvery version, and it's a phone. I mean, what more can we do with these days? Performance, it's great. It's got the latest MediaTek, the 9400, which is a very fast chip. I don't do benchmarks if you're new to this channel, because I'd rather lie in a bath of baked beans for 4 hours. I just have no interest in generating those pointless numbers. But performance-wise, it's really buttery smooth, and it runs an operating system called FunTouch, which is the best name for an operating system ever. This may not be a popular opinion, but because I know people get very kind of tribal about Android-based operating systems, but I've used loads of them this year, from Oppo, from obviously Vivo now, OnePlus, Samsung, etc. And if the operating system is based on Android 15, as this one is, it feels like Android 15, just tweaked a little bit to look, you know, Vivo-ish. They all feel the same, I'll be completely honest. And this one's great. I don't know what to say about it, really. It does everything you expect from an Android 15 based operating system. And it's, okay, there's a bit of bloatware on there. There's a few apps and things that you need to get rid of when you first set it up, but that's fine, doesn't take long. But it's great. It's really good. The display, look at it. It's amazing. It's got a 120 Hz variable refresh rate, 4,500 nits of peak brightness, so it's very bright in direct sunlight. Oh, sorry, battery life. Amazing. Absolutely incredible. Again, I don't do benchmarks with this and proper tests, but it gets you through a couple of days, no problem at all. And if you happen to leave it on standby for a little while, it goes on seemingly forever. So all that stuff is fantastic. The one thing I really want to focus on though is that camera system. The camera system on the Vivo X200 Pro is developed in partnership with Zeiss, these guys that you can see here. Now that is a very good thing immediately because Zeiss knows what they're doing when it comes to optics for cameras. And the big question obviously is, does it live up to that name that's plastered on the back of the phone? I'll come on to that in a second. In terms of the specs, it has 3 rear cameras, as is usually the case, a 50 megapixel wide camera, which is the main camera, a 50 megapixel ultra wide, and a 200 megapixel telephoto. On the front, we have a 32 megapixel selfie camera. In terms of video, it shoots up to 8K at 30 frames per second, which is bonkers. But what I'm far more interested in is just the camera system. And I have just used this camera system over the last few days straight out of the box. So I'm not using raw photography. I'm basically shooting JPEGs and seeing what they look like. It's as simple as that. I've kept the little watermark at the bottom so you can see exactly how each of these photos was taken. I've taken a lot of these photos at the F1 exhibition at Excel in London. I highly recommend that if you're an F1 person. But put simply, this phone takes the best photos I've ever seen with a smartphone. So all of those people that I've met who have said you've got to try out the X200 Pro are not wrong. There's a reason so many people are making this the phone of the year, and that's because of this camera system. Because again, if you strip back all of that stuff, the performance, the design, everything about this phone in terms of the normal phone stuff, the thing that you're left with is that massive camera bump and what it does. And that is still the main thing I think that people care about with their phones. If you think about your phone, yes, it's a very personal device, but equally it's your camera. It's the camera that you've always got with you, and it needs to do a few things. It needs to be very fast, so if your dog's running around or your kid's running around, you can capture that moment. It needs to work in low light, so it needs to take those photos in dimly lit rooms in your house or at concerts and stuff like that. Concerts aren't dim, but you get the point. It needs to do low light photography very well, and it needs to provide an image that is just great straight out of the camera. As soon as you press that shutter button, you get an image that looks lovely. And what I love about the Vivo X200 Pro is that it does all of that stuff. So it's capable of all those things, but also, I guess it's because of this massive camera bump and the depth that's built into this, is that you get a lovely DSLR quality image each time. So you get fantastic background blur, bokeh as they call it, and the depth of field always looks very professional. So you can see certain photos, well, most photos here, there's a very clear distinction between the subject that is in focus and then the rear of the photo and the foreground. It's just, it looks like I've taken this with a professional camera. And yes, I know that most smartphone camera systems are getting close to that, or they're pretty much on the money with that, but there's just something about this X200 Pro that has nailed it. Portrait mode is lovely as well. I've taken some fantastic photos of my son with this phone, and the zoom ranges on the X200 Pro are among the most usable I've found. 10x on this phone is unbelievable. I've not managed to trick it yet. I've not managed to get a horrible 10x photo with this phone. A lot of the photos that I've taken at the F1 exhibition were actually 10x, where I couldn't get near the car or whatever it was that I was trying to take a photo of, and every time 10x worked. If you go beyond 10x, you do get into that kind of AI infused realm, which I'm not a fan of, and it's very hit and miss. But 100x is for very extreme circumstances. But 10x on this phone, it might be my new favorite focal length, which was previously 5x optical on the, oh no. I've got a new favorite focal length. I'm really gushing about this phone. I just think it's such a good camera system. Even the video is good. So Android phones, in my experience, don't have as good video as the iPhone 16 Pro Max. And they have this kind of weird jittery thing going on with the stabilization. You get that a little bit with the X200 Pro, but it's nowhere near as pronounced as other Android smartphones. So even the video on this camera system is very, very good. Conclusion time. I'm not going to beat around the bush with this. The Vivo X200 Pro is my favorite Android smartphone of the year. Hands down. There are two issues with it. The first issue is the availability. I can't confirm, obviously, whether or not you can buy it in your country or how much it will cost, because the global availability is still being sorted out, but I won't comment on that because that's just the way it is. The second slight issue is that design. You know, it's the top-heavy thing, which you do get used to, but the trade-off with that, is that the right word? The benefit, the thing that you get from that is that camera system, which wipes the floor with most other smartphones I've used this year, including the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Sorry, Apple. This is such a good smartphone. If you can find this, and it's cheaper than, let's say, the Oppo X8 Pro or any of the other flagship, in fact, even the S24 Ultra, which is still the best overall smartphone I've ever used, get this. If it's cheaper than any of those phones, just buy it. Guys, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a little thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, just hit that button for more wonderful smartphone and other tech reviews in 2025. If you've still got some time, hang around for a link to another video that I think you'll find very interesting. Cheers.